So let's start outside, and let's start with the why. So why this place? So a couple of reasons. One, primo location, right? We're in the heart of Little Italy here. We do this for two reasons. One, to get primo rents. I guess three reasons. One, to get primo rents. That comes from primo tenant profiles. And the other is ARV, right? And this depends on what everybody's individual investment requirements are. But one of the big things that the owner of this place wanted is to get a high ARV to refinance that back out, rinse and repeat, right? So it was less of a cash flow play, more focused on ARV and refi. And when we work with any of our clients, we got a whole bunch of clients here. That's depending on what your goal is, you're going to end up potentially with a different property, different area. Gangway. So this place is separately metered. Both hydro. There's 5 hydro at the back, 4 gas up here. So we've got the four, one for each unit plus a common, and then here this is just for the HVAC, so 4 up here. This porch is also brand new. As we go down, I'll kind of go through like what we expected and what we didn't expect. If anybody's gone through construction before, it's like 50-60% what you expect and like 40% or more of what you don't expect. This porch is an example of something that we didn't expect. We were hoping to salvage the current porch that was here. It used to, I guess it didn't go across, but it was kind of to here. Keep this and then build this underneath, but no, we had to rebuild this. This is all new. The structure's all new here too. Cool. Any questions about the property in general before we head down?
I guess the other question is, who came last year when we had the tour right after demo?
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay, so most people won't actually have seen them before.
Cool. Let's go through. It's still no. So one of the things when we got this place is we built the business case several ways, right? We always do the most conservative. We bought this as a legal triplex. So it was, if we keep it as legal triplex, just renovate it, rent it out again, are we good? Yes. And then we could potentially have ambitions for more, right? We could potentially have a 4th unit, which is where we landed. We were also wondering if we could do a garden suite here. And at the time of acquisition, garden suite rules had just been ratified, so it wasn't a for sure. We also had no survey, so we didn't know if we had the required side setback for emergency services. We couldn't get the garden suite here. Not for lack of space, but for lack of side setback. There's actually encumbrance on the fence line over there. So, but we kind of got that still better than our base business case. Cool, let's head down the basement. Anything else I should add?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, mind your step. Yeah, it is an active construction zone, so it is... So one of the interesting things here is if you're familiar with construction, a lot of times you'll need to go to committee of adjustments to get a basement walkout like this, especially a front basement walkout. So one of the architect magic pieces that happened beyond my skill set is instead of doing a front facing, we did a perpendicular facing. This allowed us to do it as of right, as opposed to going to committee. We still had to go to committee, but we didn't have to add this, one less thing for approval.
So you didn't have to do anything, get anything for changing the look at the front for doing this?
No committee variance on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just additional real estate, that's about it, right? The front real estate, because you have to go so far out.
That didn't come up in variance. Like the application for at COA it's been a while now, but it was just the 45% rule. That's all we had to do. So everything else is
than I expected when I was in here last time.
Yeah, right. Like
I thought it felt really low, and now it actually feels
exactly.
a little more spacious.
Why down to come up? Like why?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's get everybody in, and I can talk a bit about that.
Can we sit here?
Yeah.
Can you briefly repeat what you said about the front?
Oh yeah, sure. So I don't know how our architects managed it. We did plan on having to go to COA for the front walkout, committee of adjustments.
Yeah.
But because he did the front entrance at a 90-degree angle as opposed to straight up, we're able to avoid going to COA for that front entrance. I don't know how that works, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Like I don't know how changing it 90 degrees means you don't go to COA. for that variance, but this is why we work with architects who are experienced in doing conversions, not just any old architect, right? Your question about down then up, I don't know. That's a good question. I was wondering it as well. I'm sure there's good reason. I think it has to do with water management though, because the sump pump is located at the front and there's waterproofing here. And I think we needed a bit of grading, and that was the easiest thing to do, was to dig that down a bit further, get the sump pump in there and have all the pipes run down. That's what I think.
What's the ceiling height?
This is about six and a half. So my flat hand is exactly 6'4". Yeah,
So
and
just the required
yeah.
6'7".
yeah. So this is probably a little bit higher. I think we're probably close to like 6'8" or 6'9". For those who were here before, it was definitely felt a lot lower. Yeah. So one of the things is we re-poured the slab, right? So we were able to get a couple more inches that way. So that's one. And yeah, because it definitely felt, we were just at the limit when we picked it up.
So why re-pour the slab instead of underpinning when it's like, yeah, I know it's more costly, but if you could make it,
So here's the thing. It's like, if it's quite a bit of price difference. Underpinning for this place would have been about $85,000, and repouring the slab is more like 15.
Yeah.
So that's why. And also, the basement units, in your business cases when you do the number crunching, the basement unit, you need it, but they're always the worst in overall returns, right? Like, you put a lot of money into a basement unit and then you get the least rent for them. So if you can minimize your investment in that basement unit, it's helpful. The other things that we considered when on acquisition, the amount of height above grade. So as you walk through the basement here, you'll see like the window height is actually pretty decent. Like, the windows are actually pretty big. That one we added at the front. But there's enough light, and for a basement is actually pretty good. The other thing was square footage. Like, this is just a big house, right? Like, the 2 bedrooms here are decently sized. This common area is pretty big, and that was really important. So we were super aggressive on this place. It came on the market in the evening. We had an offer in. We were seeing 4 places that morning. This was the first place we saw. Our back office team was writing the offer while we were visiting the other places that morning, and we had the offer in a couple of hours later. It's traditional Toronto market for you. It's just insane. Yeah, any questions about this?
So for legal, units,
Yeah.
does it have to be sprinkler? Like, is there any requirement
So,
for that at all?
yeah,
How does that work?
Good question. So there's a lot of people who are like, oh, the changes have allowed 4 units and it's all good. The reality is, all you don't have to qualify for now is what's called a pre-zoning review. Like, it's a one step in the process. That's become easier now because you can do 4 units as of right. The building code hasn't changed. In fact, the building code's become more strict when it comes to 4-unit conversions. So in terms of sprinkler systems, no, you don't need them if you have a lot of other stuff. So proper fire separation. So these are all type X drywall here, right? Allow the correct burn time. You can see in the insulative area over there, that green stuff, that's Roxil Safe and Sound. That also adds to fire burn rate. We have independent HVAC. So there's no holes being punched between floors to allow fire to escape, right? And you'll see we have blast windows on the 2nd floor as well. So all these things are code requirements, and even though zoning has become easier, you can still build them without the city stopping you. Ontario Building Code's actually more stringent now, so it's still not easy. It's still actually quite difficult to do these conversions. Yeah.
So what about the cost difference now for all these addeds that you have to do? Like, is it significant?
Yes. Yeah. So some things that were expensive and surprises, 400 amp conversion.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I was gonna say that's number one.
very expensive actually. So exactly, you have to trench 400 amps, and typically up until all the 4-plex conversions we had done to that point a year ago, 200 amps was sufficient as long as we showed that we were using gas appliances, and that's what we had shown. But in the last 12 months, what's changed is EV charging requirements. And so now they're looking for additional capacity on top of the building to be able to support EV infrastructure. But this house has no parking, right? Like, but we still had to do it. So that was expensive. Like, if you know, like you have to trench it and you pay per foot. It's like, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000 per foot trench cost. So that was one. The other, so while we were doing that, because we had to tear it all up, we did some other stuff. 1-inch upgrade, right, on the water main. Might as well, right? Because we have to dig it up anyway.
The sewer, you have to do anything with the sewer?
No. So one of the things that I recommend if you are planning on doing one of these is to get it scoped before close, right? Like and if you're buying now in a conditionary period, you can actually get the scoping done before you firm up a deal, right? So get the scoping done. That's important. Because that can be very expensive, right? Now for us, it's not so bad because we're breaking up the floor anyway, right? So.
I don't know if anybody knows, but if you're doing a new build versus a reno, you don't have a choice on that sewer. You have to do the sewer line, and it's like
okay.
$20,000.
Oh, wow.
Like between the water and the sewer together, it's
Yeah.
like $20K.
Yeah.
Or 21 something. But for a reno, you don't have to do it. A new build, you do. So it's
Yes.
something to consider.
Yes, yeah.
No matter how good the line is, you still have to do a new sewer line.
Good to know. We've done less new builds because traditionally new builds in the city meant development charges. But now that's changing. So now it actually might make sense to do straight up new builds on fourplexes. Cool. So take a look around. It's a 2-bedroom unit. You've seen one, you've seen them all. But take a look around, especially those of you who saw it when it was before construction started.
What kind of wood is this? Vinyl?
This is vinyl plank. Yeah.
Just curious, did you guys use resilient channels?
Yes, yeah, and that's just to help with noise transfer. Yeah, so I think they're all resilient channel mounted. Yeah. Okay, so another thing that we cared a lot about was ceiling heights, right? So you can adjust these things; they're prohibitively expensive. We're trying to take out as much of the really expensive renos as possible. So basement ceiling height was good enough. Main, second, and third all have quite high ceilings. So that's another one. And like I said, square footage. So this is kind of your primo unit, right? This is a 2 plus den. Now, the way it's configured is if you, as you're walking through later, that back room was like if you're familiar with the way that Toronto homes are, a lot of times there are these like walk out, dig out cellar entrances, which over the years they build, a little area, and then they build on top of that. And so a lot of homes in Toronto have these like very small extensions that stick out the back. So this home had one of them, and because it's been there for a long time, that's grandfathered in as part of the house. So we just wanted to take advantage of that.
Sorry.
We just want to take advantage of it, and we basically turned it into a den. The hardest thing actually when we were buying this place was trying to imagine those layouts before we actually purchased it, right? So when we're going out with clients, when we're looking at properties, we spend a lot of time just trying to figure out like, okay, can we put a bedroom here? Where's mechanical going to go? And we need to do that before we even put in an offer, right? Any questions about?
Approx square footage of this unit? What's on the sheet?
880,
Okay.
and that's probably exact. Yeah. So pretty big floor plate, and that's why people choose these versus renting a condo, right? Get a little bit more space.
Cool. Does all the units have yard space? Can they?
So they all have outdoor space except the basement. I guess the basement technically has that front area. The main has access to the backyard. This floor has its own deck. Don't go out on it. Oh, and it's steel, that deck. You'll see. More expensive. It had to be steel because of fire separation requirements. And then upstairs had this really strange fire refuge place that was in place before. So a fire refuge, in case you guys don't know, is a safe place you can hang out if the building's on fire long enough that the fire department can come and rescue you. So anytime there's a dwelling unit above 5 meters, I think it is, 5.5 meters, not an architect, but when you have a dwelling unit above that height, you must provide some sort of fire refuge in a 4-unit property. So we just expanded it. It's now a nice deck instead. It's not built yet, so don't go out there either. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I don't remember what
Yeah,
it was.
so it's just yard space, because people want green.
Oh yeah. So it was one of the important things that when we were going through for the acquisition of this property, that every unit could have something, right? And so every unit does have something now. That is actually very important, especially because the tenant profile still, and I'm sure we all do, still have COVID in the back of our minds, being stuck at home. So it's high value to having an outdoor space. Cool. Take a look through, and then we'll come back here and hit the next floor. Okay, so this unit was set up as a 2-bedroom unit when we got here. Where this was like a bathroom / kitchen. It was pretty terrible. What attracted us is the ceiling height. This is unusually high for a 3rd floor, right? Because it's usually converted attic spaces, but this was actually built as a proper 3rd floor. So that's rare in the city. The other thing is the floor plate. Like it's still pretty big. We knew we couldn't do a 2-bedroom up here because the way it was done before was just too tight, too claustrophobic, and we'd be doing it instead as a kind of a premium 1-bedroom unit. The 2800 I think that we have on the sheet is pretty conservative. Rents are a little nuts right now, and I would be surprised if we can't get at least $3,000 for this unit. Yeah. One of my friends just rented out a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom triplex, 1 unit in a triplex, for $5,050.
Wow.
Yeah. In Little Italy as well. So like, rents are high. They're very competitive, and product like this is rare. Nicely renovated, high ceilings, independent HVAC, deck, right? Like,
Premium.
it's checks off all these things, right? So this unit would have a wow factor for a renter, and hopefully that means a wow rental price, right? Any questions about? Oh yeah. So up here we use heat pumps. We use heat pumps instead of the traditional HVAC. It's a little bit. They're not as powerful, but it allows us to reduce the cost of having both an independent HVAC, independent furnace, and independent air conditioner. It's kind of an all-in-one unit, and you don't need much heat up here. The top floors usually actually have the opposite problem where they're too hot, right?
More cooling up here.
Exactly. The heat just will rise up through here.
So that's allowed in the building code as far as.
Yeah, so we're allowed to do heat pumps. They're actually encouraging the use of heat pumps because there are. I'm not gonna say more efficient. You actually pay less if it's gas, but it's better for the environment, right? Because our electricity supply tends to be cleaner, right? And gas is inherently dirty. Yeah.
It's fossil.
Yeah, it's fossil fuel. So we're running heat pumps here, but you'll see we still have a couple of radiant baseboards around, and as I mentioned, it's just for backup because these are efficient down to like minus 25, 25, and if we start getting past that, like on a really cold day, they won't work. So
everything's on the inside, everything's sticking outside now?
yeah, so these run to a condenser, on the roof. On the roof or on the side, somewhere outside.
It has to be accessible.
It's accessible, but I don't remember actually where they stopped.
This unit won't have an HRV. Does every unit
I don't
have
think it
HRV?
does. Yeah, I don't think it does.
Just the basement, right?
I think we have them in the other 3 units, just not this one. And I don't know why actually, because the city is the one that wants the HRVs. Like generally we don't want them because tenants, they'll see this switch to like recirculate air. They don't know what it is because most of them don't have HRVs where they are. They're a little bit noisy. They'll turn them on and then they'll wonder like what the heck's going on. So a lot of places like one of our clients has a fully renovated property with HRVs in it, And he just turns the power switches off in the HRVs because it just makes for tenant complaints, right? They're like, "What's this loud noise every time I turn it on?"
So you say the city actually wants it?
Yeah, it's a code requirement more than it is like the owner requirement, right?
And it's
So-
worse when you have like spray foam, right? Because it actually seals
Oh yeah,
moisture.
it seals moisture in.
And so that's what they actually say. Oh, you
Yeah.
need an HRV because they say in theory you can use up all the oxygen in the house and pass out.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is for winter for the heating supply. But how about summer?
It does both. So it's a heat pump.
Okay.
So heat pumps basically just exchange temperatures, right? So yeah, it runs one way to make heat. It runs the opposite way to make it cool. They're very popular in Asia. These are the cheapest style.
Yeah,
You can also get the more expensive cartridge style, which go into the ceilings. They look a lot nicer, but you're just doing that for aesthetics.
That's great.
Throughout the floors, one of the things that was challenging, expected and challenging, was the management of load. So if you look behind, we have this pillar here. This is structural throughout kind of the middle of the whole house. We had a lot of engineering work to do to figure out how to move load around because we knew we needed to open up the space. It wasn't unexpected because like we knew that cost was going to be there, but it was what I guess was, yeah, I don't call it unexpected, but the amount of time to do the engineering was significant because when we came out of the engineering, it was like, oh, we need a 40-foot beam. And I remember like looking at the plans and going like, how are we going to transport a 40-foot beam into the house? Like,
They have to weld it on site.
yeah, so anyway, so then we had to re-engineer because, you know, engineers, God bless them, they're not always thinking about the practicality of how to do it. It's like, oh, on plan, 40-foot beam, good. So we had to do a bunch of cycles to get that practical. We breaking up the beam into multiple sections and stuff like that.
So when you went through the zoning, was the zoning also, to increase the size of the windows? Is that part of the zoning as well?
So
When
yeah,
you
so
guys went for that?
the increase of window size, we didn't have to go through any sort of variance for that.
Oh,
if that's a
okay.
question, that was all done as of right. It does pay to work with architects that know what they're doing, like. Because we literally only went to COA for the 45% rule. That's it.
Oh, okay,
Right?
okay.
We didn't have to go for parking, density,
Right.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing that was unexpected, I should mention, is the blast window. So there's always been in the Ontario Building Code the requirement for managing blast radius. And what that means is if you have a fire, that the windows blow out and there's a certain blast pattern, right? A certain amount of area. So, but only more recently are they enforcing them on these smaller multifamily. They never used to. So, knowing this, and literally our architect is based here in Little Italy, they know that they're starting to look for these things. That's why when we go down to the main floor, you'll see the front window has a blast window installed. So it's not that much more expensive. It's not very pretty though, right? Because you've got the wires running through them. It looks a little institutional, but yeah, that was something that in the beginning we weren't expecting to have to put in a blast window.
I'm really surprised.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is that the doorbell? So each unit has its individual doorbell?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Second question, the stairs, you guys didn't bring it up to code? Because
Yes.
you just
Intentionally. Yeah.
Intentionally?
Yeah.
Why?
So stairs are usually grandfathered in based on their current structure. Code now requires greater head clearance, more gentle rise and run, and wider. And if we were to conform to new code, it's a major structural change in the house because all the openings that we have for the
You have to-
staircase
you have to move
essentially
the
become
code,
bigger. And the way that the floor joists are all arranged is you're making up for that hole that you're punching in a floor, right? So if we change that, it's big. it's major structural work. So we really try to work with the staircases that we have, so that way we don't have to do that. You can rebuild them, refinish them. We can make them as pretty as possible, but we try to keep the footprint the same. Yeah.
So as far as renovation, like to what point where they consider is like new built inside? Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's certain walls that you have to,
So
how does that work? You know, when
it's
you go for-
technically, I think 90%, 95%. If you're retaining 5 or 10% of the original building, it's considered a renovation. Yeah, and because it's only interior, you're well within what's
well
considered
within,
a
so you
renovation.
can do whatever. Okay, as long as it meets the structural, right?
Yeah. Anything you touch has to come up to current
Yeah.
code. That's a big thing.
Okay.
Does the city have to inspect any of this or just
Oh
the
yes,
architect?
many inspections. Yeah, I think we had 8 inspections plus revisits. Yeah, so we're because we did the basement walkout. We're doing foundational inspections, changing window sizes in the basement. They have to come and make sure that we're still structurally
Within, yeah.
sound. And then all the other inspections. So.
To fit to the code, what's the size of the window for each unit you have to have?
So window size isn't a code thing more than I shouldn't say that. There are code requirements. So you can't, every window you create, they assume fire is going to spill out of it, right? So if there's another building close by, I think it's 4 feet, don't quote me on that, but like if there's another building close by, you're actually not allowed to have a window. You can take an existing window and move it around to a different location, but you can't open up a new window. Now, one of the nice things about this property is that the side doesn't go to another adjacent building. It's other people's backyards. So for us to add more windows is less difficult, right? Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Not really, I mean the size of the window is any ratio with your living space?
So the size of window is not code driven.
No.
I think it's just a percentage, right? I
It's
think
percentage, yes,
of your
percentage of
opening
overall,
the,
yeah,
For
exactly.
example, if this living space of 1,000 square feet, then how big my window should be?
So there's no code requirement that says you must have a window of a certain size. There are code requirements around having windows at all. I'm sure there's a minimum size of window, but generally you're probably not trying to build to minimums, because then you're not going to be able to rent the property if somebody's got a tiny little window, right? So it's more maximums that you're trying to, that's what you're up against. And for maximums, that comes down to building percentage. So you only have to have a certain percentage of the home have windows on the exterior surface.
Well, when you see those modern homes, they got mostly windows. Like how do they
Yeah,
do that?
so they're and it is much more
Distance.
complicated, than just like
distance, yeah.
20%. There's all these like, and this is getting into architecture stuff, but there's like, depending on the distance from you and
Yeah,
the
to
next
the
property,
neighbor,
you're allowed
yeah.
to have more percentage opening. Because the concern is not, there's 2 concerns. One is around fire, so primarily they don't want a big blast coming out. And then the other is energy efficiency, right? But you can usually prove energy efficiency using good windows. So then it just usually comes down to fire. Oh.
Actually, there was a house that I saw. It was a new build, and it was still under construction. And I tried to ask the builder. I said, "How did you get that?" Because literally the house next door, you know, where the dining room was, it's like, I think it's like 3 feet, right? It's not
Yeah.
even the 4 feet, and he managed to get in.
Big windows?
2 windows, like 2 a slot, and I don't know how.
So sometimes
You
it's
won't tell me,
grandfathered
yeah.
in. So
Yeah,
there's some
I
of these
don't know.
old homes in the city that have like living rooms or dining rooms right up against another house, and they've got big bay windows there.
Yeah.
They'll grandfather that in. Yeah. So
But
you
I
can-
don't think even this house, because I asked him, this house didn't even have windows before, and they managed to put it in, so I
I
don't
don't know how they do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you can move windows from
You can move
one
it.
area to another area?
No, you can't. No, not on the same wall.
On the
you
same
can.
wall?
Yeah, on the same wall, you can if you have an existing, right? As long as you keep within the same, pretty much the same size. You can move it anywhere. But you cannot have new
You
ones
can't
put
do
in.
new
No,
unless
no.
there's
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but this guy, I don't know how he won't tell me. I said, how did you get approval? Yeah, how did you
Probably
get
did it
one?
illegally.
The things that's quite different is when we got this place, when we walked through to buy this, it was set up nothing like it is currently. So the person that was here previously, she was.
That's not awkward at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It's like babysitting. So the person that was here before, she needed like a wheelchair lift and stuff like that. So we had a wheelchair lift at the front. We had basically a hospital bed in the middle here, and kind of like all her living was done in this place. We had a barrier-free washroom and a staircase right behind you guys. So, you know, I'll pat myself on the back for this one. But one of the things as we were going through is this was the hardest unit to solve for. Like, how could we actually make this a 2-bedroom unit? Because we know it's essential that we get at least 2 bedrooms on these big spaces to make it worthwhile, right? So, you know, what I proposed to our client is, okay, let's do a split design. So that front unit, which is like where the blast window is, that was the living room before. I said, in the middle here, where we've got the party wall, we don't need to have, there's no windows, right? Stick everything else here. You know, bathrooms, mechanicals, all that stuff we can stick in the middle. And then take out this bathroom and stairwell, because we won't need the stairwell anymore, because we're gonna have their own front entrance. Take out the stairwell, keep it flat, and turn that into a bedroom. So actually that second bedroom behind you was a stairwell and washroom that we had turned into a single space.
This was the dent you were talking about?
Yeah, that room that
was the
didn't
dent.
exist before. It was a stairwell.
It was going downstairs.
It was going downstairs. Yeah. Yes.
At the front, there's a closet. What is that for? Because I saw a washer dryer in the bathroom,
yes.
And I saw water and HVAC
you would
in
pick
the
up on stuff
room.
like this.
But what's the other?
Luckily, Flo prepared me for this one. So actually, they're both mechanical. Originally, we had designed it one big mechanical room, but access was going to be a problem.
It's 11:10. Were we supposed to do something at like 11 o'clock or 11:11?
I think we have passed that.
No, 11:11.
That's 11:11. How about we just a moment of silence?
Sure.
Okay, good enough.
Where's the pipes?
They're in my head.
You didn't bring your bagpipes? Where's your kilt? All right.
Okay. So your question about the
front room.
yeah.
The other.
So basically, it was supposed to be one big mechanical room, but we couldn't get access to all the things because it was getting pretty tight. So we just split it into 2 rooms, and then now we have access for half the mechanicals through the bathroom, and then the other half from the front.
So what mechanical is going in the other one?
Is there a furnace I don't remember which. Yeah, there's a furnace in here.
Oh, okay.
So we got furnace, HRV,
Yeah.
hot water.
So water and the air are in the bathroom side.
Yeah.
Then I guess the furnace will be in the other one.
Yeah, I don't remember which was where, but that was the design decision. I was just getting, like, it would not be accessible.
Yeah.
So then we just made another access from the bathroom. Interesting. It was really funny because when I was walking through with Flo, I asked her the same question. She's like, I was going to ask you that.
No one should ask you that.
Why not? Question. Since you pick this house, you break the electronic panel. Original 100, you put a 400 each floor, right?
No.
100 each.
100 each. So original is what? Is 100.
No, originally to this house was 200 amps.
200. So okay.
100.
So I have a question is, this job done by electrician, right?
Yeah.
So
Has to be, yeah.
doesn't matter if the electrician is in the downtown Toronto or North York, Scarborough, they all can do these things, right?
They have to be a part of the organization.
Yeah, they're so
Have to be,
technically, yeah, they all have to be ESA certified.
Okay.
What happens, practically speaking, is most of the time the work's not done by a certified electrician. A certified electrician comes by afterwards to make sure that the work's done properly.
It's done by the
Right.
crews.
So yeah, you've got to make sure that whoever you're using is familiar doing this kind of stuff.
Same with plumbing as well.
Exactly. Same with plumbing. A lot of times, you're not going to hire a master plumber for $250 an hour to put in a faucet, right? It's going to be some Joe laborer.
And then also, do you want to talk a little bit about the upgrade from 200 to 400?
Yeah, we went through. Yeah. Unexpected. Lots of money.
How much more?
Buried too, right?
So
Once you go to
it really varies depending on how far you are from the transformer, right? So if you're close, we're relatively close. It was still like, I don't know, 30-something thousand to do. But if you're far, like
That's putting the main line in.
yeah, then you're like $80,000-$90,000 to trench all the way there, right? I can't remember. It's like every 6 poles or something like that. You have one of these transformers that you would have to go back to. So it's like
30,000.
yeah, at least, right? Like they can get very expensive depending on your location.
So buy a house with close to the transformer.
Yeah,
Make that part of your criteria.
You sacrifice yourself to get relation, right?
No, but then you protect it.
Oh, okay.
So, go ahead. No, so Ming, so do you have a panel for every floor?
yes. Yeah, everything's subdivided. Everything's on separate meter too.
Okay.
Separate gas too.
Yeah, separate gas.
Do
Separate.
you talk about that?
Yeah. Was it a
How
lot?
about the water?
Water's not separate.
You don't.
So who is paying for the water?
Landlord. Landlord pays for the
You don't
water.
separate.
You can separate water, but it's very complicated. Not worth it.
I know, for sewage line.
Yeah,
Was it a
exactly.
lot to separate the gas?
I don't know how to answer that question because it's like we were gonna do it anyway, so you have to redo the gas in the whole house anyway. Like there is the incremental cost of all the meters and getting the gangway set up. That's not too bad, and we kept one of the original meters. That's why you see 3 smaller ones and then the one big original one. So yeah, it's not that cost isn't so bad if you're already planning on gutting the whole place and running new gas everywhere anyway, right? But if that's not the plan and you're retrofitting it, then it's really expensive, right? It's like fixing wiring but keeping the walls, right? That's very expensive.
And how much is unit rent for the whole unit?
How much is your unit rent for, guys? It's on the sheet.
Oh,
Yeah, we just ran the comps, so they're fairly accurate. Does it say 30?
What does it say?
35.
35? Yeah, that seems about
I'm
right.
actually surprised that it's lower than the upper units.
So the one just above us is bigger. That's why. Yeah, it's a little bit
Is that the
bigger.
little den?
Yeah.
Not according to this sheet.
It should be bigger.
Yeah.
Maybe those 2 numbers got
The
swapped.
second floor is bigger.
So the second floor
Oh,
should be slightly
The
bigger.
square footage is off, but
Yeah.
the description is right.
Yeah. It should be a little bit bigger the floor. It's probably just those 2 numbers got swapped around.
It feels like this main floor is still the biggest.
Yeah, it's pretty big. The reason it actually shrinks a bit in size, so it feels bigger because of the ceiling heights, right? But it's actually smaller because of the stairwell. So you have to deal with that big stairwell and the little vestibule. It cuts into it. So.
Another question.
Yes.
With the backyard space, did
Yes.
did you run any gas lines out there for barbecues or anything like that, or fire pits?
No, I don't think we did. It's a good question. But yeah, I don't think we did actually run exterior gas here.
Yeah, it's just
So yeah, it's something,
everyone's
and
doing now.
tenants like that
Well,
stuff.
the one problem is that technically they're not allowed to hook up their own
Yes.
natural gas barbecue to it.
You have to do it.
You're supposed to get a gas guy to come do it.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do it yourself, technically. So if you provided it, then right, it's a little bit of a.
can you rent out? Can you finish one unit completely and then rent it out and then finish the other unit? Or do have
You
to finish it?
can, but it's logistically challenging, right? Because things like appliances are gonna arrive all at once. And it's just kind of easier to get it all done all at the same time.
You also
Go
have
market
economies of
all of them.
scale. So you guys on site
Yeah.
doing all the drywall once,
Yeah.
all of cabinetry at once.
Yeah, all the
right?
electrical.
Instead of calling them back 4 times.
Yeah.
Your costs would escalate quite quickly.
Yeah, we used to do that when we had to do that, when we had to stage out each unit to avoid development charges. But now, because we don't have to do that, it's just easier for it to all come at the same time.
Or if it's a different circumstance, like you're buying an existing triplex, you're not going to do, it's already tenants in place. You do 1 unit at a time. Next tenant moves out, you move into that unit, do it,
And financing, easier financing, we do one at a time.
financing is not. It's not easier to do that. Financing for construction financing is a challenge. Period. And so, unless you're very, very experienced, I would not recommend you getting construction financing.
Yeah.
You should be financing this out of pocket, out of a HELOC, out of your own means first, and then refinancing afterward to pay off that debt. There's too many, for someone who's not very, very experienced, there's too many unknowns.
The original plan for this place, because we had acquired this before the zoning changes, was for us to do a full reno of the first 3 floors and then do the basement to break it up, right? But the zoning changes happened during our initial planning phases. It got ratified, and I think we were like the 2nd or 3rd to go through under the new zoning laws. So we were like really, really early in that. I think we had like delayed our application for 2 weeks or something along those lines, so we could be under the new rules. Paul.
You may have already covered it, so I'm seeing 1.7
Yes.
plus 9, so that's 2.6, that's
Yes.
the entry point.
Yeah.
What are you projecting for the refinance?
It should be into the 3s in this place. There's quite a number in Little Italy that are like this. There's a couple of ways to go at it. One is cap rates, right? So we're doing what, 12,500 or something in rents. 12,700, even better. Right, and so like we can triangulate it through cap rates, or we can do it through comparables. But either way, because we have pretty strong rents, you know, we should be able to get into the 3s in this place.
So low 3s, so like 600 over.
We'll find out for real in a month and a half when they go through the.
This is also a challenging environment. They're ending into probably the most challenging environment. So the problem is going to be the way that appraisals work. They work on comps, right? And so it could be an artificially low number just on a temporary basis while we're in this environment, which is, you know, that plays a role. Because technically the way appraisals work is that they need to find 3 comps within 1,000 meters within the last 90 days.
And that won't exist. Yeah.
Sorry?
And that won't exist.
And that won't exist. And the problem is for anything that doesn't, where it doesn't meet exactly. So for example, this is a legal luxury 4-plex. How many of those have sold in the last 90 days within 1,000 meters? And then you have to go, okay, well, it wasn't 90 days, it was 180 days. And then you have to make adjustments. And then you have to expand the area even further. And all of a sudden you're comparing this versus a 4-plex at like Dovercourt and Symington, which is a different neighborhood. And then you're like, okay, well, we have another adjustment. And then that's the problem we run into. And also in an environment like this, the appraisers are there to protect banks. So in a non-advantageous environment like this, they will be even more conservative. So it's challenging to get, like, that will be a challenge. Even if we get the appraisal, I won't hang my hat on it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think their goal here, did you talk about their goals?
Yeah, to get as much out as possible. So high ARV is important for them. But like that can happen, you can go through the process a year later, depending on who the bank is as well. So you can do one now. If you don't get it, wait for the market to recover, go again in a year's time.
Or in 5 years or 10 years, right?
We do try to influence the appraisals as much as we can. Oftentimes we know more than the appraisers on these properties. So we do provide, detailed, and every owner of these places should be doing this, like detailed analysis on the value of the property. Come at it from a bunch of ways: cap rates, come at it from cost plus, right? Come at it from comps if it's available. Come at it from places that are doing condoizations. Like there's a bunch of ways to go at it, but provide all that data to your appraisers. Some appraisers will look at it and throw it in the garbage. But you get some appraisers who will actually use your information package. I did an appraisal last year on a property. I handed my appraisal package over to the appraiser, and he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you think it's worth?" I was like, 1.6, which is probably about 200,000 more than market. I was like, 1.6. He's like, "Okay," and my appraisal came back exactly at 1.6.
He didn't want to do anything because you did all the work.
Yeah, and I'm providing him with all this evidence.
You gave him $500 or $800.
Just turn off the camera for that.
Yeah, I know. You have to remember, these appraisers are doing 8 to 10 appraisals all over the city. Yes. They're doing it here, and then they're driving out to Milton and going to do one. There's no possible way, and this is an investment property on top of that. They're just not familiar with this type of stuff. So it's not more often than not we know more than the appraisers. 100% of the time we know more than the appraisers about this area, about the property, And so if you can do their job for them, they can just take the comps, plug them into their own appraisal report, take a few photos, and their job's done, right? So if we can, and so there's a bunch of things that we do for our clients is we help them craft, we give them sample appraisal packages, we help them craft their appraisal package so that something that they can hand to an appraiser. We've seen time and time again being able to influence. Sometimes they just toss in the garbage, especially if they have an ego. They're like, what, trying to do my job for me? Well, you know more than me. Right?
So would the appraisal affect the property tax rate?
Property tax? No, that's separate.
That's MPAC. You'll have a separate property assessment through MPAC, and that will be for the purposes of your property tax. This is purely for financing.
So would this go up a lot with property tax? That's my question.
Yeah.
So what's the property taxes on something like this?
Don't know yet, but I expect it to, go up about 50-60%.
Yeah.
So about 15K.
No. Won't go up that high.
It'll go to like 10K.
Yeah. 8 or 9, 10.
I have a question. Toronto property tax is 0.67. You mean the number will be going up now?
No. The appraised value of the place,
Oh.
because essentially what happens is you have all these taxes they want to collect, and it gets amortized over a million different homes.
Mm-hmm.
And because you have more density in Toronto, you have more homes to amortize the property taxes over. So actually, property taxes in Toronto are actually lower than many other. This surprises people. They're like, oh, they're $2 million homes. How could it be? They're lower because you have more homes to amortize it over. So anyway, what they do is they assess it based on your property home value.
Mm-hmm.
So if your property home value is $2 million versus the condo that's $600,000, that's going to affect the value of the property tax. Right? So it's not the percentage that they're going to assess. That doesn't change.
Yeah. But also it's higher not just because the property is worth more, it's because it's a 4-unit property now too.
Yeah.
The same calculation doesn't apply because it's more units.
Yeah.
But if it's over $3 million assessed value, so your property taxes would be definitely over $10,000, $11,000 for sure.
It's going to be,
No, the assessed value, MPAC is not going to come back at the same. So when I did a tear down and rebuild for my personal residence, market value of it was well into the 2s, like 2.5. MPAC came back and it took the property from high hundreds of thousands to 1.5 million. So there's a complete disconnect. There's no bearing on fair market value, which is good. There's no bearing. Your MPAC assessment has no bearing on the actual market value and vice versa.
I just got my impact the other day, and it was about $1 million difference between what the appraised market is versus.
Yeah. Well,
and they always err on the lower side because
They always do.
Yeah. They'll have tons of complaints if it's too high, right? Nobody's going to complain if their taxes are lower than market value.
So you think the city's going to increase the mill rate with all the spending?
So I don't know.
The city's always going to raise.
Yeah, I don't see them going down.
They're not going to go down. They're going to raise it. Yeah, it's just a matter of when.
Any other questions about the unit?
How's the parking situation?
There is no parking.
That is the situation.
That is the situation.
Street parking.
That front parking pad is not a real front parking pad.
It's not legal parking?
It's not legal. We bought this place with 0 parking, and the owner before, like you see, there's the handicap sign in the front because she parked on the street, and that is just was for her wheelchair to come in.
So the tenants will get their own street parking.
Yeah, but people in this area in our tenant profile, the majority of them are not car owners, right? One of the things that we are designed for is to attract that kind of like 35 and under tenant profile because they're not car owners, especially if they're here in the city. Car ownership, if you live in the city, is a burden, right? Like you pay for all the things you usually pay for. Plus now you have to find parking, you pay for permits. It's the younger generation, it's Uber, it's public transit, or their groceries come to their house. And it's actually cheaper than owning a car, right?
Kind of expensive.
Actually, the city is encouraging that. That's why they're giving out more permits. In the city, where you walk everywhere and you take the TTC. They don't want people to have cars.
The city is discouraging car ownership.
You can't drive anywhere anyways. It's construction.
Yeah, it's like.
Do you require bike parking? I heard this on.
So it's a good question. I don't know if we needed bike parking for this place. I don't think so, but we have done projects in the past that definitely do require
The
parking.
last one.
Yes, the last one we had to show bike parking on that one. Well,
With the owners, maybe like a lot of people that own Toronto are using the parking space in front. It's not parking space,
Yes.
but they're converting their
Yes.
lawn into interlock and they're parking two
Yes.
cars where there's no parking.
yes.
So they probably,
Yeah, I mean,
shed
like,
any light on
if they
that?
choose to do an illegal parking pad, like, do people do it in the city? Absolutely. Like, there's so many illegal front parking pads in the
But
city.
What's the enforcement?
there is a bylaw that you cannot have concrete with no drainage.
Yes.
You know,
So, like,
yeah.
on plan, we have to show it as permeable. To that point, we have to provide drainage, right? We can't have non-permeable surfaces. So, like, that front parking pad has to go. In terms of if they want to do something afterwards and then deal with bylaw getting, I don't know, it's like a $35 fine if you park on your lawn, then that's what some people do. Like, the entire East York is like full of these illegal front parking pads, and that's like cost of living there. It's a couple of times a year you pay your $35 ticket to
Well,
the city.
the other hard part is if you're parked up there and somebody parks on the street
On the
below
street,
you,
yeah.
you can call enforcement, but they can't actually do anything
Yes,
because
they're
it's
not
not
blocking.
an actual
Exactly.
spot.
Yeah.
So then you're blocked in.
Yes. This is joys of living in the city of Toronto.
It's like discouraging cars.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
And that's the right way to go, especially with the amount of population growth that we have. We just can't sustain that with cars, right?
So you gotta get that stupid system working.
Yes, we need more transit, but more better transit.
I agree too.
Transit
That's on time.
Oh, we went through the basement
Oh,
already.
you already went to this?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
Did you switch groups?
It started with a female, turned into a male.
Anything else? Any other questions? If not, we're gonna go back up to that floor and
Where are we hanging out?
where the coffee and donuts are.